Hi everyone, my name is Suman Thapa. I am currently a graduate student studying information assurance, and I'm here today to present to you about my internship experience at OATI. Talking about the company, OATI is an American software solutions company headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was founded in 1995 with a mission to transform the energy industry and offers various types of software solutions. The software solutions such as system integration, contract management, transmission billing, transaction scheduling, data center services, and consulting to the energy industry in North America. So it has over 1,100 employees operating in the United States, Mexico, India, and Singapore. General information about OATI. OATI stands for Open Access Technology International. Its headquarters location is at 3660 Technology Drive, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And its type of industry is software. It builds software for energy industry. And as of 2020, um, October, the total number of employees is 1104. Talking about the history of OATI, OATI was founded in 1995 by five former employees of Control Data Corporation (CDC), which is a company, which was a company who used to work on mainframes and supercomputers, and it was founded by the former employees of CDC's Energy Management Division. So later it was sold to Siemens Energy Management and Information Systems after CDC's breakup in the early 1990s. The current CEO and president of OATI is Sasan Mukhtari. So it was founded on a vision to build innovative products based on next generation technology. Its mission is to be the leading global business applications that optimize controls, automate tasks, and improve the reliability of the customers' critical operations. While working at OATI, my duties and responsibilities were to research, design, implement, and manage the software programs that were developed by OTI. And I also had to test and evaluate the new programs, identify areas of modification in existing programs, and subsequently develop these modifications. And I also had to write and implement efficient code, determine the operational practicality, develop quality assurance procedures, develop software tools, processes, and metrics, and maintain and upgrade the existing system. While working at OATA, I was working in a department called Advanced Technology Group. The head of the department, my manager, was Service Saudiker, and there were the group leads and other fellow software developers working with me in several projects under Advanced Technology Group. During my internship at OATI, I had the opportunity to work on these five projects: WebGeo, Super Archive and Big Data, Data Analytics, Web AIM, and Web Smart Forecast. So this is the timeline for my internship. So I joined OATI as a software developer intern in the month of February 2020, and I started working on WebGeo. So that was my first project when I joined OATI, and I worked on WebGeo from February to March 2020, and after that, my manager assigned me to work on Super Archive and Big Data project. So that was from March 2020 to May 2020. And later then, I worked on data analytics. So that started at the end of May till August 2020. After that, I started working on WebVIM at the end of the August till September 2020 and October. From October, I started working on Web Smart Forecast. So WebGeo was the first project I worked on. As I mentioned before, I worked on WebGeo from February to March 2020 in the spring 2020 semester. So WebGeo is a web application that facilitate other OATI web applications with map support. So it uses map data from here and OpenStreetMap. So here is a proprietary map application provider, and OSM is an open source map service provider. And it is built on top of Web Fusion framework. So it is another OATI product. So that is basically the rapid application development framework built to facilitate other OATI application to build any web application at rapid and fast pace. So this web application was developed using .NET Core, C Sharp, EXJS, JavaScript, and SQL. So talking about my tasks and accomplishment, I was assigned to work on setting up and configuring the OSM OpenStreetMap development server on CentOS Linux. So I had to investigate a lot on that because I didn't have any kind of background and knowledge on that. So I had to go through many documentations, many web resources in order to do that assignment. Uh, um, Another thing was like I have to deploy the SRTM, subtle radar topographic mission contour map data for North America in the OSM dev server. So after setting up the OSM dev server, I had to deploy the data. The map data is provided by SRTM. It is a government organization under NASA. So it provides all the map data that is required to build the contour map on OSM server. So I had to do that. So it was done using a program called SRTM to OSM. So the OSM map server only accepts the OSM format of data. So I had to convert the SRTM format data that I retrieved from SRTM website and convert it to OSM. So I did that using that program, but that program was not really compatible with the system we're using. So I had to make some modification to that program. So since it was open source and free to use, so I downloaded the source code of it, and it was written on C Sharp, and I modified the program to meet our requirements. And finally, I troubleshooted all the bugs that I had and any kind of issues I encountered during downloading that SRTM data. And finally, I downloaded that data for the OSM dev server I set. So after that, I also worked on the user interface customization, like changing the map CSS style, color, attributes for the control map. So as you can see on the right hand side, those are the contour lines of the map in some part of the North America. And I had to change the colors, like as you can see here, you can see the green, the maroon lines, and the brown lines. So I had to change the styles and format of those contour lines. So next task was to build the RPM packages for Mapnik mode tiles and setting up the Yum repository. So Mapnik mode tiles are the software that are required to display the map on the OSM map server. So these software are available, but only the source are available, and the RPM packages are not available from the developers which who developed this software. So I had to convert the source code into the RPM packages so that it can be deployed into the OSM server, because we were using CentOS uh, Linux system, which only which had to have the RPM repository set up because of the policy adopted by OATI. It had to be the RPM packages. So I took some time to investigate into that, and I finally got the sources to be packaged up in our RPM package, so it can be stored in a Yum repository in a different server, and so that so that the RPM package can be deployed without any kind of manual configuration throughout all the production servers to be used for the OATI map servers. So I worked on that. So after that, I developed the functionality to export the web geomap display data to YAML geoization Excel format. So as you can see here, there are some data that are being displayed here. So those had to be exported in different formats, and I worked on developing a module to have that functionality in WebGeo project. So I also worked on troubleshooting the installation of the data and importing issues that I encountered. So these are some tasks and accomplishments. So another project I worked on was Super Archive and Big Data. So I worked on this project from the end of the March till May 2020 in the spring semester. And the reason behind this project was the need of growing space, and there was limited space. So this was for OATI itself. So this project was built for the use of OATI itself. So there was some problem like it was not possible to keep all the data in SQL based databases due to some performance and cost issues. So uh, this the plan was to offload the data from SQL databases to Super Archive data lake, and this project was built um, on top of the Apache NiFi. So Apache NiFi is an open source software for automatic and managing the flow of data between systems. NiFi is like a logistics platform for performing ETL, extract, transform, and load. So, and PostgreSQL was used as data storage in the data lake. So, my tasks and accomplishments. So, talking about my tasks and accomplishments. So, I investigated into the features of both Apache NiFi and stream sets, prepared use cases to suggest a better data ingestion tool. So, there were two data ingestion tools available in the market to meet our uh, goal of storing the data into the data lake. And stream sets and Apache NiFi were the two options available. So I had to do investigation on both of these software, use both of them, and prepare documentation on the use cases, and finally suggest which tool was better to suit our needs for this super archive and big data project. So eventually it was decided that Apache NiFi is to be used for this project because NiFi was performing better than StreamSets, even though there were some performance issues with NiFi, but NiFi was a better option overall than StreamSets. So uh, in order to do that, I had to set up and configure StreamSets and NiFi in dev environments. So those dev environments were in CentOS Linux. So I installed NiFi and StreamSets and multiple servers in a cluster because there were millions of data records to be ingested. So it took a lot of CPU and RAM power. So I deployed them in a cluster. There were three nodes in a cluster for NiFi and three nodes in a cluster for StreamSets. So we had same configuration for both of the clusters and measured the performance after creating the data flows and data pipelines on both of those tools, and measure the performance and compared between the performance in while using those tools. So eventually we decided to use Apache NiFi. So I also had to write queries, stored procedures, stored functions, views on Microsoft SQL and PostgreSQL to create the schemas, report to do the reporting validation, and error checking and copying the data from target to destination. So it has to be written on the both side, the source and the target. The source was mainly the MS Microsoft SQL databases, and the target was the PostgreSQL. And most of the OATI web applications use Microsoft SQL databases, and I had to make sure that the data are properly ingested into the destination, that is PostgreSQL. So it had to deal with millions of records, and it was kind of a difficult task for me because it took like many weeks in order to achieve that. And while working with my team, we finally get it done. So I also had to design and test the data flows for the data ingestion. So for both of the NiFi and stream sets, I had to design the data flows. And for that, I had to do lots of research on that. I read and go through a lot of documentations on both Apache, NiFi, and stream sets. So after that, I had to do a lot of troubleshooting, both stream sets and NiFi for various issues. So I was also having JDBC connection issues, bulk transfer issues, and I was having issues with the cluster setup. So both of these software are based on Java. So in order to connect to the SQL and PostgreSQL, you have to have some kind of driver installed on both of the servers. So those drivers are based on Java. So I had to do the JDBC connection, and yeah, somehow I managed to resolve that issue. And my next project was data analytics. And data analytics is a comprehensive framework for developing integrated suite of analytic solutions for the customers. And OATI applications such as web EIM, web settlement, uh, you can use this framework to develop custom build analytic solutions for the customers. So during this project, while I was working in this project, I did the following tasks and had the following accomplishments. So I had to investigate into the Tableau server side administration and do a lot of documentation and activation of all the services that are running in Tableau server. And I also had to look into the scheduling extract refreshes, install the drivers required for the connection of different data sources, such as PostgreSQL, MS SQL, MongoDB, Excel, and other data sources. And also look into also had to look into manually running extracts, extract background tasks, managing users and workbooks, project level permissions. So I wrote a Python code for data pre-processing, feature extraction and clustering in Jupyter Hub. And it would be deployed, the models I created using the Jupyter notebook will be deployed to a TabPy server via the TabPy client, and it will be used in Tableau server for the further data analytics. So as you can see the diagram on the right hand side that depicts the working of the data analytics framework. So I also had to write a Python code to generate the load data in influx format. So it had to be in influx DB to be visualized in Grafana. So I had all the data in CSV format, and those raw data had to be converted into InfluxDB format, and I had to write a Python code which would convert data, the raw data from the CSV to the format that the influx DB can understand. So I imported, I converted the raw data into InfluxDB format, and using that InfluxDB data, it was visualized using Grafana, a web-based data visualization tool. So after data analytics, the next project I was assigned to was WebEIM, and it was developed using data analytics framework, Tableau, and web vision framework. So it would let users write Python code and build models, and those models are deployed using Thapa and used in the analytics application. It also lets users to develop their own dashboard and perform some rudimentary analytics. So as you can see on the right hand side, so that's the screenshot of the WebAI analytics. Tasks and accomplishments. While working on WebAIM project, I implemented and configured the Tableau dashboard for projects in web vision application. So as I mentioned before, it was developed on top of web vision application development framework. So I had to integrate the WebAIM application with web vision framework, and I also developed the web application with my other team members and integrated the application with web vision framework. And I also had to do a lot of debugging, troubleshooting, and write a lot of documentation. So the next project I worked on was Web Smart Forecast. It provides the ability to forecast the electricity load. So the load is measured and reported every 15 minutes, and predictions are to be made for 4 days into the future. Predictions are computed every 15 minutes. Historical values of weather measurements like dry bulb temperature, pressure, humidity, cloud cover, etc., are used for predictions. So my tasks and accomplishments. So my first task was to convert the Box Jenkins Python modules, which was built for Windows, but it had to be converted to work on Linux because the web smart forecast is a web application, and it is running. It runs on Linux. So the models that will be required to perform the forecasting had to be in Linux as well. So I was assigned to convert the boxing as model um, to work on Linux. So it was one of the most challenging tasks I've ever got because um, I had to go through a lot of documentation and lots of I had to do a lot of investigation on that. And since Windows and Linux are completely different systems, so it was not easy task to make it work on Linux. So I had to build um, everything from source so that it can run on Linux. So the Boxinkins model is a model based on ARIMA, that's auto regression integrated moving average model for time series model. So it had this boxing and time series library. So that was the main library that would help it do the forecasting. So it was written on C++. So I had to set up the project in Eclipse with the debugging tools, and I had to do a lot of debugging and build and compile, and I would encounter a lot of errors. And eventually, I got it to work on Linux and deployed it into the WebSmart Focus Tape um, server, and did some um, uh, forecasting with that model. And after running several times and running some tests, it worked. So yeah, it was one of the most difficult tasks I ever worked on during my tenure at OATI. So for that, I had to set up virtual machines to create the Linux environment to debug and compile the required libraries for a box synthesis model, and create the RPM packages and the Python modules. So at first, I created Python modules for that, but the way we deploy um, this model in the OATI production servers was different. So it had to be an RPM package for the security reasons. So I had to convert the Python module once again into the RPM packages. And another task I was assigned to was developing the Python program to retrieve weather data from WebRTO and NOAA web services. So, but for the forecasting, for load forecasting, weather data, such as the dry bulb temperature, cloud cover, humidity. So this kind of data were required. So with the help of the historical data, the prediction was done using several other models. So that's SPR, the boxing is model, and uh, other several models would run and predict um, the load for the next 4 days. So after that, I worked on the configuration of Rundeck uh, to run the load forecast and weather programs at a scheduled time. So the Rundeck is nothing but a scheduling program. So we have to configure it with the cron jobs to run particular programs or commands or something at a particular time. So as you can see on the right hand side, um, we used Ansible for everything. So Ansible would create a job with the HTTP request step. So that is plugin and Rundeck, which would allow to send a request, HTTP request to the API, so that it could interact with the other programs with our web smart focus program. So it would Ansible would create a job with HTTP request step, and it would create a job on Rundeck, and Rundeck would run at a particular time. For example, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it will go through the load balancer, and there will be two application servers. Those are the dev servers, and um, those servers had the APIs, the web services running, and would create a Kafka topic, and the Kafka topic those messages would be sent to the Kafka topic as a payload, and uh, that payload or messages were consumed by the uh, program, and it would execute the program on the dev servers. And after that, I had to work with fixing the bugs, debugging, troubleshooting, and documentation. So, tools and technologies used. So, while working at OATI, I had to use C Sharp, Python, C++, JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. And the frameworks I used were Extra.js, jQuery, .NET Core. The databases were Microsoft SQL, MongoDB, PostgreSQL, and InfluxDB. And IDE were Microsoft Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio Code, Eclipse, and Spider. And tools I used were Tableau, Apache NiFi, StreamSets, Kafka, Rundeck, Zookeeper, Tapai, Jupyter Hub, Grafana. And the version control systems I used were Git, Microsoft Team Foundation Server. New technologies to learn. So I was new to these 10 technologies, so I had to um, go through many tutorials on YouTube and go through lots of web resources in order to learn those technologies. So yeah, these were the technologies that I learned while working at OATI. So courses that helped me in the internship. So I 643, I 543, I 673, I 681, I 606, 683, 693. So these were the courses that helped me a lot during my internship um, as a software developer intern at OATI. So while I was working on Super Archive project, I had to write a lot of store procedures, store functions used on Microsoft SQL and Postgres SQL to make sure that the data are copied from source to destination without an issue. I also had to make sure that the data are inserted and updated on bulk to the destination using the store procedures. So IA 643 and IA 543 were the courses that were really helpful for me to write necessary functions, queries, and establish to accomplish the task because I learned the basics of database and database management systems, learned to write efficient queries, procedures, views, functions, design the entity relationship diagrams on DB, MSs like MS SQL and Oracle databases. And had to do a lot of projects, labs, and exercises on SQL. So these were really helpful for me to accomplish my tasks. So um, another while I was working on a super archive and big data web smart forecast and data analytics projects, I had to work with Linux a lot, immensely. Like since the web applications were built to run on Linux, having experience with Linux was an advantage. After learning those courses, the I673 and I621, 681, I got better understanding. I had like added advantage. I had a better understanding because of that. I had learned how to log into a Linux server via the SSL terminal. I learned about the Linux commands, how to kill the processes, how to see the logs, how to analyze the network packets. The knowledge I gained from the courses were very helpful to me while I was working on the projects. I had to set up and configure various software and service using the SSS terminal and issue various Linux commands to make sure that the services were running properly. I also uh, had to do a lot of troubleshooting, so it helped me with troubleshooting and fix the issue. So while I was working on data analytics and web smart forecast, I had to write lots of Python programs to perform various tasks. I learned the basics of Python from course like I-683, where the professor had assigned us to complete a tutorial for beginners on Python and few assignments in which we had to use Python. And I also had to deal with SSL certificate and configuration while trying to make the application secure. The courses like I-606 and I-693 were very helpful. And if I hadn't taken these courses, then it would be very difficult for me to complete this kind of tasks. So I had to work with MongoDB extensively while working on very smart forecast projects. So after taking the I-606 class and working on the projects and assignments, I was I had become kind of good at MongoDB as well. So I got to use that skill at work effectively. I also learned how to make the application more robust and security from these courses. Since OATI gives application security and overall cybersecurity as the top priority, so I had to make sure that the application are secure and robust. So learning outcomes. So talking about the learning outcomes. So learning outcomes for technical skills. Effectively utilizing a new software tool to accomplish tasks. So these are the things I learned after my internship at OATI. So during my internship, I had to learn various new software tools and technologies to complete my assigned tasks. It has enhanced my technical skills even more. I learned new tools and software like Apache NiFi, StreamSets, Jupyter Hub, Tableau, Apache Zookeeper, Kafka, Tappy while working to complete my assigned tasks. Maintaining and troubleshooting technology. I also learned how to maintain and troubleshoot using different types of debugging tools in IT. I had to work with C Sharp, C++, and Python programming languages, so I mostly used Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, Eclipse, and Spider as my IDE. The code I wrote would not be error free, so I had to debug and troubleshoot various issues using these IDEs. And the projects had their own coding standards, so I had to write the code according to the standards. I had to use Git and Team Foundation Server (TFS) as the version control system to maintain the code. So, learning outcomes for cognitive skills. Organizing and maintaining information. So organization and maintenance of information are a few of the cognitive skills I learned after my internship. There were daily and weekly project meetings as well as meetings with my team members. At first, I found it difficult to organize and maintain the information I got. But later, I learned to be attentive, listen carefully, and take notes and document everything, which made it easier for me to organize and maintain the information. Improving problem solving and critical thinking skills. After working with my managers and team members on number of projects, I believe that my problem solving skill and critical thinking skills have been improved. I had to work on investigating new tools, new concepts, and ideas, and explain the ideas to my fellow team members and manager. My manager would assign me new problems to me, and I had to go over the problem again and again until I come up with the solution to the problem. My manager would just suggest me to break the problem into sub problems, talking with team members to get their perspective on the problem and build diagrams to visualize the problem. So doing so would help me to think critically and help me with solving the problem. So exercising, learning outcomes for professional skills, exercising leadership. The internship also helped me to exercise my leadership skill. In a couple of projects, I had to work with a small team of three team members, and I took the opportunity to lead the team. Me and my team members had to investigate on two different DL tools and suggest the manager which one was better. And we worked together and researched on these tools, prepared uh, uh, a comprehensive documentation and presented the findings, and suggest the manager which one was better. And in another project I worked on, I worked with a team member to visualize the data in Tableau. I divided the tasks, assigned the tasks to each team member, and helped them with the tasks, and finally got the project completed on time. So listening effectively. Uh, One of the professional skills we must have is the skill to listen effectively. I realized that during my internship, I had daily and weekly meetings with my manager and team members. I realized that failing to listen effectively is failing to complete the task on time. The manager would give me the requirements of the project during the meeting and expect me to complete the task in time. I would just get distracted and fail to listen to him effectively, which would cause misunderstanding um, and miscommunication. I would not get the proper requirements for the task. So having no proper understanding of the requirements would always cause the project to go to a different direction and cause the delay in completion of my project, of my task. So listening effectively is very important and effective professional skill to learn. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.